joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. Leave home in the sunshine,
Dance through a meadow,
or sit by a stream and just be. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. The lilt of the water will gather your worries and carry them down to the sea. Men hunger for freedom but don't see the dungeon is only the thought that they're bound. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found. Desires are their shackles, the hope that tomorrow the doorway to joy will be found.
there's joy all around us.
Why wait till tomorrow? We've only this moment to live. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. A heaven within us is ours for the finding, a freedom no riches can give. There's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air. The flowers are all laughing to welcome the morning. Your soul is as free as the air.
And from Rays of One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. The inner kingdom. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Most people imagine that the inner kingdom, as Jesus described it, it lacks the fascination they attribute to the sense life, the bright lights, the diverse attractions, the joys, and the laughter. Little do they realize what a vast universe exists in their own selves. There are many passages in the Old Testament and New Testaments of the Bible that describe aspects of the inner kingdom. In the book of Genesis, we read, "And the Lord God planted a garden eastward of Eden, and the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil." This garden was in no earthly place. It existed even now in the very self of every human being. The legend of Adam and Eve is allegorical. It describes how the first human beings dissipated their spiritual energy, centered in the spine. The spine is the channel through which flows the river of baptism and the spiritual life. The Bhagavad Gita tells us the wise speak of an eternal Ashwatha tree, with its roots above and its branches below. The tree of life, spoken also in Genesis, is the spine. Its roots are above in the brain's energy. Its branches are the outward spreading nervous system. When the sap, which is to say the energy, flows downward, the consciousness is drawn into delusion. On the other hand, when the energy is drawn upward in deep meditation, the consciousness is drawn towards its eternal source, God, and is at last attuned with Him. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita therefore urges his chief disciple Arjuna to embrace the yoga science, the path of meditation. The yogi, he says, is greater than the ascetic, greater even than the followers of the path of wisdom, Jnana Yoga, or action, Karma Yoga. Be thou, Arjuna, a yogi. For those who would find the divine truth, Krishna gives this description of the yogi. Steadfast, a lamp burns, sheltered from the wind, steadfastly meditating, solitary. Such is the likeness of the yogi's mind, shut from senseless storms and burning bright to heaven. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
I'd like to welcome you all to Sunday service. My name is Atman, and this is Bhakti Marg. It's our pleasure and joy to share this service with you. Especially want to welcome those who are here at the Expanding Light for the women's retreat or the meditation retreat or personal retreat, and also all those who are with us throughout the world online. So let's continue with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. These are prayer demands by Paramahansa Yogananda. Bless me that I may know that I am dreaming, even though my senses tell me I am awake. As we rest in sleep, wake in the morning to our daily round of desperate seeming but only half-conscious activity, then fall back to sleep again at night. So also do we pass fleetingly from birth to life to death again, waking ever and again in new bodies, dashing about our appointments and other commitments, delighting them in them, or groaning at their importunity, then finding ourselves forced to leave everything at death's next summons, dream after dream of ceaseless earthly struggles. On the sleigh of incarnations, we find ourselves sliding by hopes and disappointments, victories and failures, fulfillments and disillusionments. When the smooth snow of easy passage melts and the underlying ice of insecurity breaks, we find ourselves plunged into heaving seas, eddies of gay, then desperate laughter, sargassos of cloying involvements, vast calms of indifference. Ah, all only dreams. When at last I awoke in thee, I discovered that I'd been dreaming all along. I'd only thought I was awake. So this world, it just seems so real. But the scriptures tell us, well, maybe it's not so real. We wake up every morning, it's the same body, it's the same bed, we're interacting with the same people, it's the same sense of linear time, things are fixed, you can't walk through your walls. You can't Sunday service starts at 11 o'clock and you have to be there at that time. It's just all so fixed and so real. But the mystical teachings of the scriptures, of the Gita, of the Bible, some of which we talked about here, are just hint or open doors for those that can see and those that can hear, open doors to a completely different, vast reality. And we talk about here the tree of life, that there's a central column, a central nervous system, the tree that's pulling energy from the cosmos up above, and it's going outward through all these nerve channels and chakras and energy centers, and there's cosmoses floating within cosmoses and astral bodies and causal bodies and universes, and it's thrilling. It's just incredible. So why is one so real, and why is it so hard to get to the other one? We'll talk about that a little bit. Yogananda loved to tell a story that's indicative of how things go in this world, and it's about the sea frog. So there was this frog who lived by the sea, and he would swim in the vast ocean, play in the waves, and then come out and haul himself out and sun himself on the sand in this vast, expansive, sunny, open area. And one day he heard chirpings or croakings from some of his brother frogs that were nearby and in a well. So he said, oh, let me go see what they're doing. So he hopped over to the well and he looked down in there and he saw this small well covered with frogs. They were jumping around and pushing each other and hopping about. And they called up to him and said, oh, yo, homeless, derelict frog up there. What are you doing? Come down, join our home. We have a wonderful society here. You can come down and be part of that. And the sea frog just looked down and said, nay, 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 I don't think so. And so he hopped back to the beach and started enjoying his sunshine again and swimming in the sea. And then he thought, oh, my poor brother frogs stuck in that little well. Maybe I can help them. So he hopped back over, and this time he hopped in, landing on the back of some of the frogs, and the king well frog came swimming over on the backs of some of his slave frogs and said, what are you doing? Why do you come down here? Welcome. And the sea frog said, well, I've come to tell you of a different reality of where I live. He said, do you live? Where do you live? Do you live in a well? How big is your well? He said, no, it's much, much bigger than this one. Much bigger? How big is it? And he jumped a foot. Is it that big? He said, 1 foot across? He said, nay, it's much bigger. And he jumped 2 feet. He said, is that big? He said, nay, it's much bigger than that. Then he jumped all the way halfway across the well. He said, is it that big? And the sea frog said, no, I'm sorry, it's much, much bigger. And the other frog puffed up and was starting to get angry and looking around and making himself bigger. How can it be bigger than this? And he jumped all the way across the well. He said, is it that big? And the sea frog just laughed again. He said, no, it's much, much bigger. It's sextillion times bigger than this well. And the well frog just sort of looked at him and couldn't believe him and got very angry and started swimming about and churning up all his brothers and his slave frogs and his society frogs, and he couldn't believe it. And the other one persisted, and he said, let me tell you about this. And for several hours, they had this conversation about what it was like, the well that the sea frog lived in. And finally, he prevailed, and the king frog jumped out of the well and looked around, and behold, he was on the beach in the vast ocean, where he wasn't on top of all the other frogs. It was just a oneness and openness. And the story shows that someone has to lead us out of our little well of delusion, that it's not always easy to find a way to see out beyond that. And we're really fortunate at this time in the ages that there's more and more information out there and more channels for the divine that are telling us to wake up, to giving us a glimpse of what it's like in these other places. And I'll never forget when I was first coming onto the path, I was practicing yoga, and I went on a retreat, and the leader of the retreat just mentioned, oh, I have some books. This was mainly a hatha yoga ashram, although we were meditating as well. But she said, oh, I brought some books that you might want to look through during our break time. And I picked up one of these books, and it was quite an old book. And I think the author was Ledbetter or something like that. But it was a book on the chakras. And there were these plates in there. They looked like photographic plates, but they were very well done colored plates of what well done colored plates, but they were very of what, but they were very well done colored plates, but they were very of what well done colored plates of what, but they were very well done colored plates, but they were very of what, but they were very well done colored plates of what well done colored plates, but they were very of what, but they were very well done colored plates of what well done colored plates, but they were very well done colored plates, but they were very of what of a yogi. And how does Master start out on the title page of the autobiography of a yogi? He quotes the Gospel of St. John, and he says, except ye see signs and wonders, ye shall not believe. And then in his book, he gives us many things that just give a glimpse to where that consciousness that he lived in. For example, he's as a little boy, he's meditating on his bed, and all of a sudden, the flash of light, and he sees the Himalayas, and he sees meditating yogis, and he sees Ishvara, just the divine light. He has experiences with saints who live nearby him, the Master Mahashaya, who he intercedes for Yogananda and says, please have the Divine Mother come. And the Divine Mother comes and appears to him and says, always have I loved thee, always will I love thee. He goes on pilgrimage to search out other saints, to Tadakeshwar. And what happens when he finally finds the saint he can't sleep because there's lights and cosmic lightning and flashes happening, and he just is filled with this incredible joy and ecstasy. And when he goes back by the stone at Tarakeshwar, what happens? The stone opens up and sees all the rings of the universes, of the worlds, just into infinite space. And of course, the experience of cosmic consciousness that's given to him by his guru, and that masterpiece of mystical literature, the poem Samadhi. And we read this book and we go, wow. I mean, I think most of us in this room were probably touched by that. And you go, this is for me. I want this. I don't want this ego. I want to experience these things. I want to see saints. I want to experience my chakras. I want to see divine light. I want Samadhi by Christmas. And so we launch ourselves onto the spiritual path, and what happens? Well, it's not quite as easy as it was in the autobiography of a yogi, or you don't always see those things right away. And the passage that we read today gives us a little bit of a clue to that. It's not enough to just say, I don't want this ego anymore. I am divine. I will experience that divinity. You also have to know a little bit. You have to say, okay, what's happening here? How does this energy flowing in my body? How do I make this work? How can I get past this? And you have to look at what the reality of this spine is. And as it says, there's a tree of life, and it's gathering energy from above, and it's coming down, and it's going out into the branches, the many-leaved branches. Well, what are all those little branches? All those little branches are our sensory attachments, our connection to the material world, our duality, our pluses and minuses, our pleasures and pains. And what we have to realize, Yogananda said there's two reasons mainly why it's so difficult, or why it takes some time to get out of this. And one is because what happened before you were born, and the other one is what happens after you're born. So what happened before we were born? Well, this gets into a little bit of what they're talking about in the scripture here, the allegory with Adam and Eve. So we've come through many lifetimes of the animal kingdom, the mineral kingdom, the plants. We finally got up to a human birth, and the human vehicle, the human nervous system, the human body is especially adapted for finding God. You can't find God through the other bodies or plants, the other bodies of animals or plants. Plants don't realize God. Neither do most of the animals. Maybe dogs excepted. But you have to look at where, we've been through millions of lifetimes, and what's been happening to that energy. And in the allegory of Adam and Eve, what happened? They moved into this wondrous vehicle, this body where energy could flow up a central spine, that it would come in from the cosmos, immediately be united back there, and not be dissipated outward. Except they were drawn down by subconscious remembrances and samskars of where they were in the past, of how they lived in the animal kingdom. And that energy started to move outwards. Instead of the divine creation and union of upward, it started to move out into duality, the knowledge of good and evil. And that's what happens to us. That's what happened to us as people, as people in human bodies, as souls in human bodies. That energy started moving outward. And how many lifetimes has that been going on? How many habits? How much karma? Karma is just our past actions, those habit patterns. What's happened to us during all those lifetimes? That energy just keeps flowing, flowing, and it takes a bit to redo it, not just the thought. I want to know these divine realities. It takes a little bit to move, to change that reality. Master had another story that he liked to tell that shows some of the difficulty of doing this, and it was about a rich man who liked to entertain, and he was a little bit of an alcoholic. He liked his drink, and he had a very vast selection of wines and liquors that he enjoyed serving to his friends. And one day, a holy man came by and started talking about the spiritual path, and he was engrossed. He was bitten by that. He said, yeah, that's for me. And the holy man said, on the spiritual path, you have to leave behind some of your things in this outer world, one of which would be drink. So the man says, okay, no problem. I can do that. I'm in control of myself. I'm leaving behind the alcohol. So he told his servant, said, lock up the liquor downstairs and you keep the key and you only get some when I have some guests and serve my guests. So his guests would come and his servant would come and bring this and he would serve them and he would not partake and just abstain. And then he said, that's quite a bit of a bother to have my servant go down and keep it locked up. I'll just keep a few bottles up here. So he had some in the cupboard up in his living room, and he would have the servant serve those. And he said one day, the servant wasn't there. He said, I'm in control of this. I don't drink anymore, and so I will serve them. So he took the bottles and he would serve his guests, and they would drink. And then he said, well, I better make sure that it's okay what I'm serving them. And so he would take a sip and say, yeah, that's fine. I'm not drinking. No, it's just a little sip. And he would serve his guests. And then it went on. He said, it's a little bit rude of me to be serving my guests and not drinking with them. What will they think of me? And, I'm not attached. I don't have any problem with this. So I can just take a little bit of a drink. And so he'd drink a glass and be with his guests. And next thing you know, he was back drinking again, all the while saying, I'm not attached to this. I don't have any problem. There's no problem with me drinking. But that's what happens. Those habit patterns, they're deep. Yogananda said it takes 5 to 8 years to reverse the energy of a deep-seated, difficult habit pattern. So we have to continue to work on that, to continue to, through the grace of the gurus, through the grace of God, through our own willpower, to help change that energy and start bringing it from flowing outward into the leaves, back into the trunk, and up to the top. So what happens after birth is the other part of it. Well, I think this society is not, in general, set up to further the spiritual path, to reinforce those spiritual realities. It reinforces material realities. And especially, we come in from the astral world and we've had a glimpse of what it's like, what's beyond this physical body. And we come into a new incarnation and our parents are there and they're just worried about trying to get us to eat and to, be quiet and go to sleep. And, it's a fairly materially driven existence. And there's a wonderful story that Swami shares that I'm not sure if it happened here, but it was some friends of his related it to him. It was a couple who had a young son, and then they had another son, and the baby came, and the baby was growing up in the nursery. And at one point, the first son said to them, I'd like to talk to my brother alone. And so the parents were sort of, okay. And they were afraid a little bit of maybe some sibling rivalry or something going on. So they wanted to make sure that this was going to be okay. So they sort of hung back by the door, and the first son went in and went over to where his brother was, and he just kind of leaned down and he whispered and he said, tell me what it was like. Tell me what it was like on the other side. I'm beginning to forget. This is a true story. So, the children have that, but it's so much is reinforced. And then, guess what happens? Puberty happens and hormones kick in, and where's our energy going? It's right down there at the base of the spine, and that strongest of delusions, the sex delusion going outward. And so it's not necessarily an easy thing to get past all this. And, sometimes we have some disappointments and we didn't reach samadhi by Christmas and we start to fall off the path a little bit. And, it's so real, these sense things. It seems so right. They're there. Why would God give us these pleasures if it wasn't, meant to do this? And you start getting drawn back out into these things. But, there's one thing that Swami said that I was reading that really touched me. And he said, here we are loving the material world, and we're sending our love outward into material, largely insensate, unconscious things. And they couldn't care less. The material world couldn't care less about our love. And it's unrequited love. Nothing ever comes back from that. There's no resonance there. It isn't what we're looking for. But if we start moving toward the divine, if we start giving our love toward the divine, what happens? The divine actually reaches down and meets us halfway. It gives us the power to to give us that power to reach up higher, to continue on that spiritual path. So that resonance is there. It knows that we're reaching down. And we have to realize that is what we are looking for. And that all these other things, we're just going to get beat up. It's the wave that comes up, the wave goes down. We're feeling wonderful, success, full of joy. Next thing you know, we're in sorrow and despair and bankruptcy. And then we move into another life and we do it all again. It's just an inevitable up and down, and duality is just going to beat us up, this ocean of delusion. And at some point, a critical point on the spiritual path for all of us, a very, very necessary point, is when we realize that it's only God is going to give us the answer that we're looking for happiness. Nothing else is going to do it. And again, it's something that we can know intellectually, that we can start moving into, but it's something that as we go through more and more experiences, as we come back, it's something we have to come back to. We just have to hold on to, say, yep, what are my choices? Yeah, this might be hard, this might take a long time, but what are my choices? Nothing else is going to give me the happiness that I'm seeking. And once you realize that, that's the attitude that you need on the spiritual path. That's the push that's going to keep you going. And at that point, we're almost there. You know, even if it takes another couple incarnations or 10 or 15 incarnations or 100 incarnations, it doesn't matter. That realization has come and we know where we're going. And we also know how to get there because we've also been given true teachings. They're out in the world. We don't have to be hidden in the Himalayas. The teachings of Kriya Yoga, of many very valid paths, are out there in this age of Dwapara Yuga. And as it says in the very end of this reading today, you know, it tells us what we need to do. The yogi, sheltered, is the flame sheltered from the wind, sitting steadfast. We need to be in meditation. Meditation is the key, the right attitude, and then the meditation. And what do we need to do in meditation? We need to be aware of how energy flows in our body and what's going on, that most of it's going out into these leaves of sense activity. And so the first thing as you sit to meditate, stop that. Just say, I'm leaving this all behind. I am not going to think about my job, my spouse, my kids, what I'm having for breakfast. I'm leaving that all aside. I'm just going to focus on God. And then the other part of meditation is to gain sufficient control of that energy so that it can come inward, and that we actually cut off those sense telephones, as Yogananda called them, that we're not still getting this stimulus from the outside world. And we can do that by focusing deeply, by withdrawing the energy, by practice. We can pull that energy inward. So cut off what's going on in the mind, shut down the sense telephones, and that energy will flow where it needs to go to. So I just want to end with a thought that, you know, back to the autobiography, we all wished that we had or could have or will have, and we will, those experiences that Yogananda had, but that's not really important. I mean, there are people, Master and Swami tell stories. There was some person who came to a meditation for the first time and was blessed with a divine sight. They were seeing through walls. They were perceiving the inner flow of energy in people. It was the first time that they were meditating, one of the first satsangs they came to. What happened? They didn't come back. They didn't join the path. They said, oh, well, that was kind of nice, you know. That was it. So it's not the phenomena. The spiritual path is not a circus. It's, you know, we're not out there looking for that. What we're looking for is that inner divine communion. But it also helps. It also helps to have something to hold on to when that pull outward is strong. So all of us have had some experience of the divine, of it be a sense of deep peace, of joy after meditation, an all-pervading love that goes beyond any kind of personal love. And that's the real. That's the inner kingdom. That's more real than what looks real to outside. And hold on to that. Just be aware of it. Hold on to those experiences. And when the winds buffet you back and forth and you're floating out there lost on the sea of delusion, just grab onto that. And the other life raft, of course, is the Guru. So just hold on to the feet of the Guru and just ask for help. Just keep lifting that up, keep offering and say, I'm doing the best I can. There's a lot to do here. I need your help. And we will arrive at the goal.
Whispering within your soul, hints of laughter, hints of joy, sweet songs of sadness, of quenchless yearning for the light, for my love, your true home. Long your heart has played the dancer, long you've toyed with me, with shadows of the treasures left behind you, deep in your soul. Long you've plumbed the dark for answers, long you've begged from beggars' empty hands, gifts of life they too were seeking, gifts none could share. Friend, how long will you wander? Friend, as long as you seek your home in a land where all are strangers, love locks her door. Leave to the weak his craven life, to the cowardly his dreaming. Oh, my saint, wake up, reclaim the light, seek the truth behind all seeming. Leave to the weak his craven life, to the cowardly his dreaming. Oh, my saint, wake up, reclaim the light, seek the truth behind all seeming. Turn, turn, turn within, in silence of soul, in cave of love, find my abode. Listen, listen, whispering within your soul, hints of laughter, hints of